Hello, my friends, and thank you for joining me here in this space, in this podcast. I am very grateful, whether you are joining me for the first time or whether you are returning to listen to another podcast episode. It's been the most wonderful, almost year and a half that I've been creating this podcast, and it's brought me so much joy, and I am always grateful for all the wonderful feedback that I get from you, letting me know how much you're enjoying the podcast and how much you're learning from it. So thank you for that. If you are here, I'd love you to subscribe and I'd love you to leave a review. This is something that I don't often ask for, but this is definitely something that helps me grow this podcast and know that you are liking it. I know that you are benefiting from it. So please subscribe and please leave a review, and it will be very, very appreciated. Thank you. So today I want to talk about something that I talk a lot about in my training certification and in the embodied business mandala container. And this is this idea of identity, this idea of who do you need to become to grow your business and build your business in a way that you love, to become a really great practitioner, to live the best life that you can, the life that you want to live. And maybe we can start with really exploring a little bit what that identity is. And there are many different psychological theories about identity. And there are some theories that say that our identity is fixed, that we were born with a certain identity and it's never going to change. And sometimes when you listen to people, you hear people say, this is how I am. This is how I am. This is just me. I can't change, or it's too late for me to change now. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. That comes quite often from older people. And this is a really interesting exploration, because with, there is no denying that we change through our life. So that those theories that say that our identity is quite fixed, well, actually, they're quite easily to disprove. But this is really a question, the oldest question within the psychology. Is it nature or is it nurture? Is it nature, the way that we were born, the way that our personality is fixed right from the beginning, the way that, the way we like and dislike things, the way we interact with others? Or is it nurture? Nurture as our conditioning, our childhood experiences, the impact of trauma, the impact of adverse childhood experiences, the impact of everything that we experience, especially during childhood, as we were growing, as our brain and our nervous system and our physiology were developing, as we were learning from significant adults around us how to behave. Because one of the ways, if not the only way, for a child to really learn is by mimicking how other people are behaving around them. So identity is not an easy thing to describe, but we can really, there are other theories. So, for example, the internal family systems and the parts theory says that there are different parts within us, each stepping forward or taking over at different points in life, in different contexts or environments or relationships. And some of them are very conscious, some of them unconscious. And there is this kind of multitude of us, as different parts of us, as well as the embodied self, which is this core self within us that is not a part, but really an essence of us. So there are so many different theories about identity. And I think for me, when we are exploring it in the certification and in the business container, asking that question, who do you need to become? Who do you want to become, and who do you need to become? For example, to achieve your goals, or to build the business that you want, or to become the practitioner that you want to be, or to live the kind of life that you want to be. And that comes from this understanding that the change needs to happen from within. It needs to happen from the inside out. And yes, the change is one constant within our human life. Things are always forever changing within your body, in the environment around you, in nature, within the universe, with other people. It's continuous change, whether we are aware of it or not. It's never ending, continuous change. And the question in here is, how can we make it more conscious? How can we be more active participant in building or growing or creating our own identity? How can we be more conscious around it? And the thing in here that is, and I see a lot of mindset coaches, and there are lots of business coaches out there, leadership coaches, achievement coaches, life coaches, and they all talk about identity through the perspective of the mind. Like, let's look at self-beliefs, let's look at mindset, let's do affirmations, let's look at that conditioning of the mind, and let's change it. Let's shape it. Let's mold it into what we want it to be. So if you are feeling that you are not good enough, and your internal self-talk is, I am not good enough, I can't do this, how can we work on changing this internal dialogue and what we say to ourselves? And for me, this is only one part of the process. For it to be successful, we need to include other aspects of our being. We need to bring the wholeness of ourselves to really make a big, profound, transformational shift within our identity. And because this is what happens when we have maybe this huge, life-changing experience, that something profoundly shifts within us and nothing ever looks the same again. But there is another, there are a couple of things in here that are missing for me. So, for example, yes, we can work on all of this through the mind. And certainly, our society is built on Cartesian thinking, in the premise of I think, therefore I am. So let's do it through the mind. And we see it within our society, especially Western society, how people who have got qualifications, who are able to use their mind to do certain things, are rewarded really beautifully, handsomely. And I often think that it's actually very, very misleading, because there are many different types of intelligence. And actually, there is a difference between intelligence and embodied wisdom. There is a difference between knowledge, having a lot of knowledge, and being able to remember it and say it back in the way that you learned, in the way that it's required of you to receive your qualifications, because ultimately that's what it is. You go on a course, let's say it's a college or it's a university course, you are giving some books, you attend some seminars, some lectures. You have to read, you have to memorize all of it to a degree where you can, to a good enough degree, that then you can repeat it back in a way that you learned it. So then you are judged on on how well you can repeat it back. That's all it is. And I've met people who, especially when I was working in social care, who had loads of degrees, qualifications, degrees, masters, PhDs, doctors, who were not able to communicate with the clients, that it would always end up in an argument. So actually, that is just one aspect of it. And I've met people who had very basic qualifications, who had the amazing emotional intelligence and the level of empathy that allowed them to hold space for clients and for another human being in a way that felt safe enough for them, that felt healing, that felt that was based on trust, and that allowed the person to really drop deeper into their experience and engage in the process of healing. And so when I think about identity, we within our Western society, we really are so focused on what we do. Like, I am a doctor, I am a coach, I am a yoga teacher, I am pilot, or whatever your identity is. Like, if somebody asks you what do you do or who you are, we normally list all of those things, but actually that's only part of it. The identity that I'm talking about here, that answers the question of who do I need to become to create the life or business that I desire, is a different kind of there is a different kind of focus, and that focus is the embodiment. There is a difference between knowing something and embodying something. There is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. There is a difference between being able to repeat what you learned in a book and actually translate it into practical application, where just by speaking with somebody or working with somebody or holding space for them, you create safe enough space and container for that person to feel safe enough to then allow themselves to be vulnerable with you enough to experience deep transformation, experience deep insights, experience deep shift on a very deep level of their being. And so the embodiment part within identity plays a big part. There are many, and yes, there are many roles and jobs that you can do without having to embody it. But I'm guessing that if you are here, if you are listening to this podcast, you are like me and you want to walk your talk. You want to live the best life that you can, be in really good, healthy relationships with your loved ones and your friends, be part of a community, supportive community, or build a supportive community, hold space for others, for deep transformation, for deep impact, and change, and through your work, change the world. And whether it is on a grassroots level or whether it is on a big level up there, big picture level, both are equally important. And I'm sure you know that already through your experience, that if you work with embodiment, if you want to walk your talk, it is a very much and inner work that you need to do. This doesn't happen on the outside. You cannot get embodiment out there through somebody else telling you what to do, through somebody else telling you this is the right thing to do this, not that. Yes, there are some practices that you can learn from somebody. And certainly this is what we do in my training certification. But ultimately, I can only teach you practices. You have to take these practices and go and practice them. You have to do them day after day after day. If you want to understand your needs, you need to keep coming back throughout the day and keep asking yourself, what are my needs right now? What am I experiencing right now? What's true for me? What is this that I am experiencing here? And once you know how you're feeling, what your experience is, you can then ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? Knowing how I feel right now, what do I need? And how can I meet my needs in an empowered way? Like, nobody can tell you that. And of course, people try to tell you what to do. Any women's magazine and men's magazines these days, if you pick it up, there will be an article on mindfulness, there will be an article of fitness, there will be an article on self-care, maybe on boundaries, maybe on other psychological topics, maybe even on identity. But there is a difference between really slowing down, taking time to get to know yourself, understanding what's true for you in this moment and why is it true for you, and who you are right now, and then understanding who you no longer want to be and who you want to be instead on an embodied, deeper level, not on a superficial level, the mask that you show to others as you interact with people or on the social media, on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, doing a little dance, pretending that you're really happy and then switching it off and being really unhappy or even depressed or anxious or resentful. So this piece of work about embodiment is a really important piece of work, because once we understand it, we can start making decisions from that more embodied space. So identifying the qualities that you want to embody, engaging in embodiment practices, and taking actions from that embodied space will allow you to create a different life. But it's not as straightforward as this. These are just few things that you can make. The other thing in here is to really understand the role that the nervous system and our nervous system and physiological state play in our embodiment. So people talk about embodiment as it's something that you need to get to that you are not doing now. And the truth is that you are always in a state of embodiment. You always embody something. It might be an embodiment of rage. It might be an embodiment of anxiety and fear. It might be an embodiment of workaholic. It might be an embodiment of somebody who's depressed. It might be an embodiment of joy or gratitude or happiness or playfulness. You always embody some kind of state, and most of us embody those states on a habitual way, in a habitual way. So really understanding that can help us to start to unpick it. We have to start with what's true for us right now. really get a clear picture of it, getting to know ourselves on a more intimate level, being able to listen deeply within, and understanding what's true for us, and then moving into what qualities we want to embody. Maybe there are other qualities that we want to embody. Maybe you've been living on autopilot. Maybe you've been feeling disconnected from life. Maybe nothing really matters. And so embodying more the quality of curiosity, and doing things, new things, embody the qualities of somebody who's curious, who goes on explorations, who tries new things, who allows themselves to be a bit more visible or a bit more vulnerable, will shift slowly how you are approaching life, how you're approaching your relationships, how you're approaching everything. And one other thing that is really missing in all of this conversation. So for me, so I see people, as I said, who do a lot of mindset stuff. Let's change how you think. So therefore, your inner experience will change, and the decisions that you are making will also change. The actions that you are taking change. Now that's one level. The second level is when people talk about embodiment. Well, let's embody different qualities. Let's connect with the felt sense of gratitude, or connect with a felt sense of curiosity, or let's cultivate compassion. And so that's another step. But there is usually one piece of this conversation missing, and that's that nervous system connection. That piece where the polyvagal theory teaches us that our state, our nervous system state, our physiological state, because they are always happening together, creates the story and creates, and shapes the meaning that we create around it. And for me, that's one of the most liberating and amazing pieces of understanding that can profoundly change how you approach things. Because if we understand that our state, our nervous system and physiological state comes first, and that creates the story and the meaning about our experience, about our life, about who we are, about what we're doing, then we can shift our focus into changing and working with this physiological and nervous system state, our own physiological and nervous system state. We can start doing things that help us feel more grounded, more present, more regulated within our nervous system and physiology, more connected, more curious, more compassionate, more fully here, more fully embodied within the present moment and the presence. And understanding that if we focus on that, of course, the meaning that we create about ourselves and our life will change, which means that then we shift into believing on a deep embodied level that, of course, I can do this. I can be curious. I can learn. I don't know how I'm doing this, but I can allow myself to make some mistakes. I can allow myself to experiment. I can allow myself to play with it. I know that I am one with life. I know that I am supported by generations of men and women that came before me. I know that I am the miracle of life manifesting itself in this moment. Isn't that amazing? I mean, thousands, if not millions of people men and women that came before me, for me to be able to be alive and exist in this moment, in this point in time, on this amazing planet spinning in the middle of the dark universe and spinning around itself and around the sun. And there is so much more in here. Just as I'm talking about this, just because I've been talking about this process of shifting from the mind and trying to influence everything through the mind, the body through the mind, the beliefs through the mind, the embodiment through the mind, my state through the mind, shifting from that into more embodied space of being here and the qualities that might be more useful or helpful to me, and then shifting more into the state, the regulated state, present state, being here state, stability and support and feeling safe enough. Now the story comes almost by itself. And I can really feel it in my body as I'm talking about this. I just feel really alive in here, really present, and saying those things. I can do this, I can learn. Isn't that amazing? Life is sacred. My life is sacred, your life is sacred, this life is sacred, and it's so miraculous and so magnificent and so wondrous, so rich in experience. It's so easy for me to say that because I worked and explored that state, physiological and nervous system state of presence, of stability, of feeling safe enough being here right now. And then the story that comes, it's easily created from that space. And of course, it can happen the other way around, where we shift into the state of fear or the state of anger, or that fight or flight, or even shifting into the freeze or even shutdown. And when our physiological and nervous system state goes to that, no wonder that then the story and the meaning that we create from it is very different. And everything that we do follows in much the same fashion. So my invitation to you in today's episode is to start thinking about it in the way that I just described it, which, when I first started working with that in this way, it felt kind of upside down. Like I am exploring it and approaching it in a completely upside down to everybody else. Because our Western society is built on the mind, on the controlling things through the mind, on doing things through the mind, letting go of the mind, allowing the mind to be secondary, was kind of, it felt kind of upside down. But what I hear so often, and it really warms my heart when I hear it from, for example, from participants of our trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women training certification, I hear it in every single cohort again and again and again from women who say, God, I feel hopeful now, because it comes from this experience of trying so hard to change through the mind, through changing the inner self-talk, through affirmations, through cognitive approaches, through talk therapy. And actually, the mind is trying to do it and the body is just resisting, because the body and that somatic embodied wisdom is not included in that. When we include the state, nervous system state in physiology, when we understand how we are one whole being, that we have to include the soma, psyche, and soul, that we don't have to, but when we start by working with our physiological and nervous system state, and then bring in the story and the meaning, it becomes easier. We move away from the labels, that so often we use within mental health, especially, but in physical health as well. And we just start coming to the very basic understanding of physiology and the nervous system. Am I moving towards what I'm doing? Is it moving me towards more regulated state? Regulated as more stability, more connection to myself, to others, more ease, more peace, more flow, more in a state of being present, feeling safe enough, feeling curious, feeling compassionate? Or is what I'm doing moving me away from that more regulated state into more dysregulated state, into hypervigilance, into overworking, into exhaustion, into tired by wired, into not sleeping enough, into arguments, into withdrawal, into disconnection, into hopelessness and helplessness, and all of those kind of things. There is when we can translate it into practical ways that it's showing within our life, within our daily life, then we can start taking our power back. We can start choosing for ourselves what we're going to choose consciously to keep in our life, maybe to bring more of in our life, and what we need to let go of. So one of the things, for example, is the Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I've been watching it very closely this year and last year, but especially this year. Been watching the number of emails that have been coming into my inbox about all the deals, and most of them had this FOMO, fear of missing out kind of aspect to it. Buy it now, buy it today, 24 hours left. Many of them had those clocks that are counting back, 24 hours left, 12 hours left, last 3 hours left. And where I can understand that it's good for business, it's certainly not good for our nervous system, and it's not a good way to make decisions from. And so I switched off from it. I didn't buy anything. I switched off from it, and I actively avoided social media. And I was just deleting the emails from my inbox, because I learned a long time ago those decisions made in this hyped up, hypervigilant state of I have to do this, this sympathetic activation are never good decisions for me to make. And so in my own business, I don't implement those kind of things. I don't offer discounts that you have to make decisions in within a couple of hours or within the weekend. It just does not work that way. I don't like it. I don't like what it does to my nervous system, and I don't subscribe to it. And I avoid it, and I will avoid people who will just keep doing it. And that's really linked with my identity. I've been working over the last few years on really walking my talk and embodying the qualities that that are linked with my core values. And this is an important exploration for me, because I know that I want to walk my talk to the best of my ability. I'm by no means perfect. I think I've got a long way to go to be perfect. And I don't aim to be perfect. I know I will make mistakes. I know that though I might have best intentions to express something in some kind of way, it still might come out wrong. There still will be miscommunication. There still will be disagreement. That's part of being in relationships with other people who think in different ways to me. We all have different opinions. We all have different lenses through which we view the world because we've had different experiences. We are different people. We have different identities, even if they seem similar from the outside. But we can choose consciously what we want to do. From big things to very little things like, do I take part in Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales madness? How do I run my business? How do I schedule my work week? Not only how do I show up when I work with clients, but how do I do everything else through the lens of my core values, through the lens of what's important to me, through the lens of my priorities, through the lens of my identity and who I want to be. And so we don't create this cognitive dissonance that we say one thing, this is what's important to us, and then we behave in a very different way. Like if we say, for example, that nervous system regulation and nervous system friendly is really important to us and how we, this is what we value. And yet our business practices are not nervous system friendly or trauma informed. There is a cognitive dissonance here. So the identity can come on so many different levels. And I would really invite you to explore it for yourself, to see what it means for you, to see how it lands for you. Take what resonates, leave the rest, explore it for yourself, create your own meaning. But whatever you do, start with your state, with your physiological and nervous system state. Then everything else that is built on that, your embodiment, your identity, who you are, your mindset, your every decision that you make will be much easier to make. I'd love to hear what you think about this and how it lands, how it resonates. And if you would like some support, if you'd like to learn more about this stuff and you are a female practitioner, come and join us for our spring 2025 cohort of trauma-informed somatic teacher and coach for women certification. Or if your focus for 2025 is to grow your sustainable, thriving, nervous system friendly business, where you want to really understand what's your niche, who you're working with, what's your offering, create your offering, launch it, sell it, step up in your business, then come and join us for the Embodied Business Mandala Mentorship and Mastermind Circle. Whatever you decide, remember, you can choose for yourself. Start with your inner experience, honor it, witness it, acknowledge it, honor it, and be as kind, as tender with yourself as you are with others. Look after yourself and take care for now.